This episode of TQA Weekly is me answering the 4 most common questions asked to me by email through comments on YouTube and of course through Facebook, where there's also a Amazon.ca wish list of stuff that I actually want to upgrade my studio. My name is Steve Smith, this is TQA Weekly, and if ever you have any questions, comments, suggestions for topics, you can always email me at ask@tqaweekly.com. Go to my website, tqaweekly.com, where you can interact with the community, use the contact form to email me directly, go to the Support Us page to find ways of supporting my show, and of course, you can go to the subscribe option on that site to figure out all the possible ways where you can actually interact with me on social networks, as well as other ways of subscribing to this show. And for anyone following me on Facebook, you may have seen that wish list from Amazon.ca. That is the best way to support my show, by helping me get the equipment that I need for my new set. So I've been doing this show for almost 5 years, and I get a lot of emails, a lot of comments, a lot of Facebook messages, at facebook.com/ZEDAXIS1981. That's my Facebook fan page if you want to actually interact with me. And guess what? After 5 years, I actually get a lot of email. I spend a lot of time reading emails, reading comments, and interacting with you. So yeah, I'm probably not the most social person online because I actually have to work, but when I can, I do. And by the way, the 4 most common questions I get asked about are thermal paste, mainboard overclocking, SLI configurations, which I will specify, and PCI Express generational compatibility. So yeah, let's get on top of this topic. So first of all, thermal paste. It is a question I normally get after a very specific event occurs. Your computer overheats, keeps shutting down in the middle of games. You open up your chassis and it's full of dirty stuff. I don't want to see it. Don't send me pictures anymore. It's disgusting. Anyway, once they get it clean, they end up removing the CPU heatsink, removing the thermal paste, and of course from the heatsink and the processor, and putting it back, and then they go mid-game and the computer shuts in their face because CPU throttled into a shutdown. When you're at this point, I would like to point out that there was a reason why that thermal paste was there. Nobody on this planet is yet capable of making a surface so smooth and inside an industrial manufacturing process that we end up with air gaps in the surface that make it so that the processor and heatsink still end up being insulated from each other unless we use something known as thermal paste, which is a thermal transfer compound that allows for the filling of these holes so that our processor can efficiently transfer the heat to the heatsink. Therefore, where the fan blows it away and cools down everything and keeps it shutting down in your face. So remember this. Next time you clean your dirty freaking computer, don't send me your pictures. I don't want to see them. Just add new thermal paste. Thank you. The next question, which is a more interesting question, is the PCIe generational compatibility. Or like I like to call it, the what are you sending this me as email again? PCI Express is much like USB. There are multiple generations of cross-compatibility. And a lot like the multiple generations, there are many different lanes, like there are many different plugs of USB. So you've got Generation 1, Generation 2, which is twice as fast as 1, Generation 3, which is twice as fast as 2 and 4 times faster than Generation 1. You have lanes that are X1, X4, X8, X12, X16, and X32 lanes long. The X32 only exists on non-consumer boards, by the way. And then most consumer boards will have several X1 lanes, an X8 lane, and an X16 lane, and some include an X4 lane. If you had a purely, like I do in my box, a purely PCI Express board, technically speaking, everything works in every slot, no problem whatsoever. Because PCI Express is something that is very unique, besides the fact that it's a copy of USB in the ideology. It's any card will work in any slot as long as it fits in this slot physically. But you can get an X16 card to fit in an X1 card slot as long as the back is actually open. It will just run slower. So what ends up happening is, the speed of the card is determined by the lane size as well as the generation of it, and the generation is determined on which one is oldest, not newest. So if the slot that it's plugged into is newer than the card speed is actually what's going to reign supreme. If the slot is older than the card, the slot speed will actually be what's reigning king in that specific process. And if you plug a bigger card into a smaller slot, well, then the number of lanes accessible is what actually determines the speed itself. So everything works in everything. That's what it is. PCI Express generational compatibility. Everything works in everything, as long as the back is open and everything plugs in. Now you got SLI configurations which are more strict. By the way, I do know this does not apply to Crossfire. Crossfire doesn't give an A. So, do whatever you want with Crossfire. This actually refers to NVIDIA. NVIDIA SLI configurations require a minimum of 8 lanes per card in order for it to be able to have a SLI certification. So what ends up happening is most consumer motherboards, including the Intel processors, have a maximum of 16 lanes on the consumer side, which allows you to have only two graphics cards from NVIDIA in SLI on any given consumer motherboard, except for this theoretical gigabyte vaporware I've never seen. If you want to send it to me, go ahead, tqaweekly.com, go to contact page. My address is there. Send me this so-called vaporware board I have never been able to order despite working in a computer store. And then I might actually freaking shut my mouth about it. But technically speaking, SLI configurations on the Z97 board are limited to 2 graphics cards if the main board is even certified by NVIDIA as being capable of doing SLI. So, in order to have a SLI configuration on a motherboard, NVIDIA must say yes, must have 8 lanes per card available, and the processor must have enough lanes to actually support the SLI configuration in the process. So, yeah, that is one of the more complicated things. Or you can just do this. Go to AMD, Crossfire all you want. They don't care. Literally, they don't care. As long as it plugs in, you can put as many cards as you want, up to 4 in a Crossfire configuration. Then we have mainboard overclocking. And in that episode, which is technically my most, watched episode right now? Currently, it's probably not my most watched episode ever, but currently it's my most watched one. It's my H97... Hold on. It's the Intel H97 Z97 X99 board processor episode. Anyway, I talked about the difference between the H97, Z97, and X99 boards. A lot of people will defend their purchase by saying that overclocking features exist on the H97 board. And I do grant it to them that yes, it does have limited overclocking. The thing is what they're referring to is what I would call a micro turbo. It allows you to push your hardware a little bit faster, but it's not in fact a true full overclock. When I'm talking about overclocking, I'm talking about fine-tunability of the overall system. The ability to adjust all of the settings within the computer to be able to do virtually whatever you want to push the speed of both the CPU and the RAM, because the graphics card's independent of this process. But then you also have to have all those VRMs in place and the ability to cool it all off and sufficient airflow in the computers and not the stock fan from the companies, because you want a better fan, because thermals actually are responsible for a lot of instability. So having higher end VRMs, a unlocked processor on an unlocked motherboard is the only real way you're going to fully control your motherboard. So mainboard overclocking could basically be called full control of everything you own, because you're not limited, especially on a Z97 board when you have a i5 4690K or the i7 4770K or 4790K. And here's a fast fact for anybody. If you have a 4770K i7 processor, don't bother going out and getting the 4790K processor unless you're bloody rich, because there's only a 0.3 difference anyway in the rating of the processors themselves. So let's put it out there. If you want to overclock your computer, get a Z97 board with an unlocked processor, or get an X99 board if you can't stop bleeding and hemorrhaging cash out of your pockets, and actually want to get a high-end computer that also can do 3 or 4-way SLI, and obviously can do Crossfire, but who cares because it works on everything anyway. But the X99 board does everything that the richest people that can actually afford that, I wish I could, but the Z97 does the overclocking as long as you have an unlocked processor. So thank you for watching this show. Thank you for all your questions, by the way. Otherwise, episodes of questions I get asked more often don't actually happen. So my email is ask@tqaweekly.com. The website is tqaweekly.com. You can go to the contact page and email me directly. Select the episode that you want to actually talk about. Go to the episode page themselves and interact with other people. Go to the subscribe page, or you can follow me on social media, as well as finding my episodes in different mediums and formats. And of course, you can always go to my Facebook page, look up my Amazon wish list, buy a few of those things for me, which I will unbox on this show for you, thanking you, because I actually need that stuff to actually upgrade my entire set. And eventually I will show that off when I actually succeed at building my new set. So thank you. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, like or dislike this show, and have a great day.